Welcome to Manifest 360, the podcast where we stop waiting for life to happen and start creating on purpose. Today's episode about something a lot of people get backward. We think clarity first, then action, but most of the time, clarity shows up because of action. You don't figure out your own path by sitting still and overthinking every possible outcome like you're trying to solve a murder on one of those TV shows at 2 o'clock in the morning. You find your direction by moving, trying, failing, adjusting, and repeating. Welcome to the episode. I'm Bob, that's Vipin, and today we're talking about clarity through action.
This has been an interesting week for me, and I wanted to talk about this topic because it came through. I was hearing a speaker in the middle of the week, and he was talking about action and how people take action, and action is really the key to getting your dreams met and getting your goals met, and for your health, moving your body, all of that stuff, right? But I think a lot of people get stuck. A lot of people think they have to have the right direction figured out. I think a lot of people want to have clarity before action, and oftentimes just do the right thing, do the next thing, and then kind of the road opens up a little bit. And so I saw a great quote on it. I'm going to read that in a second, but I just thought this was a great topic because most people are afraid to get started. Get started on their purpose, get started on their dreams, started on their big goals. And one of the things that I'm known for, and maybe too prematurely early on in my life, but it always served me well, I just take action. I just go trying to make something happen. And oftentimes I don't always know exactly how things are going to work out, but the right paths seem to open up when I start walking down the road. And kind of use that metaphor of, the path will reveal itself as we go down the path. And so last week we talked about universe, and trusting the universe, and I think that's kind of what we have to do. And when you're talking about action, just trust that you're taking the right action today, and you may end up turning back around and going the other way, and that's okay. The key is to just start moving.
About like what you said about taking action, that's the important thing. But the thing is that when you take action, sometimes that action isn't the correct action. The nice thing is that you can take a step back and go at it again and get the results that you're looking for, rather than having the wrong results in the long run.
We talked last week about trusting the universe and running into roadblocks. And when you take action, when you start moving, that's when you see the roadblocks. And that's when you can look to the right, saying, hey, is there a path there? Look to the left. If not, you got to backtrack. It's like a puzzle. It's like a maze that you're going through in life, I think. There's a famous philosopher / poet named Rumi. And I want to read a quote from Rumi. He's a Persian poet / philosopher. Rumi basically said, as you start to walk on the way appears. Clarity does not come before action. It comes from action. So that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this. People think they have to have it all figured out. They don't. They just need to know what the right next thing is. What the next thing that they need to focus on just for today. And start moving just today. If you try to get your plans all set up and get all these goals and all that stuff, that's important to think about. It's good to write down. But just for today, what should you do? Should you open up your laptop, send that email to a friend, send that text to a friend, send that to a business associate, ask for a mentor for help? Just make that call, and you never know what's going to happen. I want to talk about a story that I started to happen last week. I think I told you about the venture lab / venture capital fund that I was getting involved with. You remember me talking about that last week, Bob?
Yes, I do.
So back when I was a kid, not a kid, but after college, I wanted to start companies, and I wanted to be really wealthy, and I wanted to be part of a venture fund. And what happened when I started my internet company back in 1999, I got hooked up through a friend. And it's actually really interesting. I want to tell you how I got hooked up with a friend. So I was dropping something off at a friend's place of work in Bellevue, Washington. And he asked me, he's like, hey, how's it going with the startup? And I said, it's not going well. One of the investors walked away today. And he said, okay, it's not a problem. He goes, I have a friend, let's just call him Michael. He says, Michael's got a venture fund that he started together, and Michael's a really cool guy. You should meet him sometime. So I went, and I think I was going to pick up my mom from the airport, and I thought about it, and I gave Michael a call. And Michael ended up we ended up meeting, talking on the phone. Michael was a founder of a tech hardware / software company in the network fiber space, networking, technical fiber routers and that kind of thing. That was a big deal back in the 99, 2000s. And he was starting a venture fund with some guys. and hooked up with them. And the venture fund ended up raising a bunch of money and investing in my startup. But I remember I purposely was having a bad day. And I told my friend at this shop that I was at in Bellevue, like, hey, I'm having a bad day. It is what it is. He's like, oh, maybe I got a friend to help you with. So that opened a door that led to another door that opened another door. And next thing you know, the venture started that way. Same kind of thing in the last 2 weeks. When I met this woman from a venture fund, I think she's doing really well. She's in the early parts of her starting this venture fund. And I wanted to hire her to be a business development person for my startup that I'm working on. And she's very strategic, has healthcare experience and all of this stuff. And we got along. We really liked each other for the first hour. And she's like, I want to invest in your company. And as part of this, I'm raising a fund. And she goes, you may be a good partner in this fund. So we started chatting a week and a half ago. And from a Friday 9 days ago to today, I'm now part of this fund. I've actually contacted out to a lot of my friends and started meeting with investors. Mm-hmm. I've got an investor advisor signed up on Wednesday. And things are rolling. And what's happening is the venture fund will fund in my healthcare startup that I'm working on. And it's just one thing led to another. And the startup is doing well. It's just in the early stages. We've got 3 co-founders, and we've got 2 other people that are helping us on the project. And off to the races. But what I'm saying is, I didn't think 2 weeks ago that I was going to be part of a venture fund. I didn't know I was going to be part of something called Kindness for Capital, something that invests in social impact companies, companies that care about community health, things that care about. We talk about this, making the world a better place on this podcast. We talk a lot about, doing good. The more good that you do, the more we talk about the giving part. The more you give, the more you get.
Right.
And so it's just crazy. 2 weeks ago, I never would have thought that I was part of a venture fund. But 20 years ago, I had a dream of being one. So here we are. That's why the clarity came from taking action. It took action to call this woman, talk to her for an hour. It went really well. It took action to call some other friends and saying, hey, I'm doing this venture fund thing. What do you think? And now we're off and running on this venture fund.
Well, it helps to take action rather than to overthink, because when you overthink things, that's a form of self-protection, and a lot of times you'll end up talking yourself out of doing something. I know that I've done that multiple times in my life where it's like, you know what, I think I should do this, and then you start hesitating, and then pretty soon you didn't do it, and then somebody else that you may have told your idea to ends up taking that idea that you kind of had, and they are successful with it. So jumping in and doing it with both feet, Vipin, that's the way to do it, I think.
It is. And I want to stay focused on kind of like not worrying about competition or other people taking your ideas and that happens rarely. Most people, if they believe in a passion for your idea, that you believe in your idea, they usually, people that are going to make something happen out of it, they already have their own idea. So I learned a long time ago from venture capitals and from investors and folks that said that don't worry about sharing your idea. Protect your intellectual asset. Protect your strategy. But the key thing is to make sure that you have a lot of passion for something that you're going to do, because it's going to be a tough road ahead. And not just applying for a venture, but also applying to being an author or being a podcaster or whatever. It's going to take a long time. So make sure whatever you're doing, you have a passion and a purpose around. So, and we've talked about in the past, getting clarity on purpose is really around taking your passions and sharing that with others. I have another quote that I read this week that I thought was really interesting, and I forgot who it's from, but it basically says, the more you help other people succeed, the more success finds you multiplied.
That's a great quote.
That's a great quote, and I love it. I think it's a beautiful one, too, the way they did it. The more you help other people succeed, the more success finds you. And then it said dash multiplied. So it's all about giving, and it's all about helping people. And if you help people, provide more value to them in use value or whatever it is, and then you get monetary value out of it. That's really what it's all about. It's about giving people your passion, sharing your value with them. In this case, we're talking about a healthcare software to solve the problems of healthcare workers who are struggling, and to do something, they're using Excel sheets and Word documents, and so we're trying to automate their workflow and help them with the technology and use some AI built on top of it. And so if it saves them time, they're willing to pay for it. That's really all it is, simple as that. If you're giving somebody a value of saving them time and energy and money, and maybe generating more money through the tools that you provide. So
another thing to look at too is, I mean, even like when we were talking about earlier about sometimes things fail, sometimes you have to take that step back and look forward. Every attempt gives you more data to look at, so that way you're able to be successful in the future.
Exactly. And there's no such thing as failure. The failure is when you give up. People think, well, I started a business and it failed. Well, what did you learn from it? You learn to do a bunch of things that you don't want to do in the next venture. So they call people like me serial entrepreneurs. Have you heard that word before?
Oh, absolutely. I've been called that. Okay. I've been called that a lot as well.
So as serial entrepreneurs, and a lot of entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs. They're not just going to start one company. They're going to start multiple companies. They're going to keep trying until something works. And that idea of learning from your mistakes, that's really what it is. There's no failure. That's that whole growth mindset that is so popular out there today. It's about learning and growing with each step, each misstep, each success. What did you learn? What worked? What didn't work? So that's where you get the clarity from. You get clarity from taking action that doesn't work. Now you know what not to do. You get action from what worked. Okay, I'll repeat more of what worked. And so the whole idea is really to take action, but don't push too hard. Let the universe guide you. Just think about today. Hey, is there a friend? Is that person a good guy? As I went and I met some folks this week, one of the things that stood by me was I didn't push anyone. There's one guy that I sent an email to, and I set up a meeting with him, and he and I met, and we ended up talking about his life and his kids and his recent past for probably 30 minutes out of the 45 minutes that we talked for. We barely talked about my venture. Same thing yesterday. I met with a good friend of mine who's a big high-tech executive. We ended up talking about his life and what's going on with him and his career and his thing. And then we ended up talking about my business for 5 minutes. I think that's naturally what I've progressed to. The old Vipin would have ended up talking about his thing, what I can get out of you, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm like building relationships with people.
Right. That's the best thing. I mean, that's the whole process of friendship and being in sales and whatnot, is that building that relationship will help you in the long run. I mean, instead of going in like you would have gone in before saying, I want blah, 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 now you're saying, okay, how are you? What's going on? What's new? And all of that helps to build the blocks of foundation that will help you in the long run in order to achieve the goals that you're trying to get.
And so it's just giving of yourself. My friend, I think, is struggling a little bit in his career. He's a chief marketing officer. He's in the same age as us, like mid-50s. And kids are in college. And what's happening is people are trying to figure out, like, what's next? What's the second phase of my life going to be? And so I've done a certain amount of things, but am I going to keep being in the rat race, or am I going to do something different? And so helping people get clarity. I talked about the mantra. I talked about breathing exercises with him. I'm like, hey, everything starts with I'm calm, I'm centered, I'm loving. Once you center yourself, the right path, the right purpose, the right passion, all that sun will start to come around little by little. If you just focus on staying calm, centered, and loving to yourself first, and then loving other people.
Yeah, that's been a huge part of my life since you first shared that with me, the calm, centered, and loving. In fact, Monique brings it up quite a bit. She goes, yeah, you've been a lot more calm, centered, and loving since you and Vipin talk about that. When we're talking about some of the things before about the we've all been in relationships. A lot of us have had children, and you think about the little mistakes that you've made along the way when you're first building a relationship, or when you're first having kids, or when you're first, as you mentioned, starting a business or a podcast or any of those things, and you think that, okay, I made a mistake. You look back, you're like, okay, this is what I can do to tweak it to make it better. And that's the same thing that we're talking about now with business. You've made those little mistakes. Learn from those mistakes, go back and start building on things in order to make it better for you and better for the situation that you're trying to build.
It's one of those things that people think they want something and then getting it is going to make them happy. But the process of getting it, the process of building towards it, getting it and then keeping it are two different things. A lot of times people aren't ready when they have early success. I had an early success. I wasn't great at keeping it. And so the key, I think, in life is you want to become who you want to be as part of the process. So you can not only get the thing that you want, but you can enjoy the thing that you want. You get to keep the thing that you... And so there are two different skills there. And so sometimes you may manifest something, a business, or win the lottery or whatever. And we've talked about that most of the lottery winners don't end up keeping the money because they weren't ready for it. They didn't know how to handle it. So I think same thing applies. And so you want something that is worth having while the process of getting what you want, you're becoming the person that you want to be. So as part of that mantra that we talk about is getting to be a loving, kind person. People want to be around. People want to help. People want to be with you. People want to share certain things with you. And so the more you help others, the more you help yourself. And as you grow into the person that you want to be, your relationships will get better. Your relationship with yourself will get better. Your external manifestation of material things will get easier. You'll enjoy life a lot more. The key is to really be gentle and learn and enjoy yourself through the process. Become the person that you want to be. You can't change the world, but you can change yourself. If you change yourself, you end up changing your world, which essentially is all that you have anyways.
You know, a lot of the times the small actions create the massive, man, think about it, you know. The small things that you're doing, the tiny wins that we get on a regular basis, those all add up to a giant win.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all about the little things that go right. It's never about this one huge thing. It's the power of accumulation, right? We've talked about finance and capitalism and how, power of accumulation and compound interest. It applies to life's principles too. I was telling a friend, he's like, so you got this book, you're going to write this book, you've written part of it. And I told him I took a online book course 2 years ago and I finished a version of the book in those 30 days that I took an online course. And all the guy was doing was giving you homework assignments every night. And then you would do the assignment for that day. It took about an hour maximum. But at the end of 30 days, you have spent 30 hours developing the book concept. And then you spend the next time editing whatever. Same kind of thing I'm going to apply this summer. I'm going to spend an hour a day, and that's it, to work on the book. And you think, my God, how are you going to, your deadline is in January. You got plenty of time to work on it. But if you want the product to be good, you need to spend time doing it. You don't want to do a cram test in December on your holiday saying, I got to finish the book. It's if you want the product to be good, you got to start focusing on what can you do today? What can you do to make better? So I'm going to take an online course with that same guy again and start working on a 30-day plan here starting in June.
That sounds awesome. And you know what? And if you make a mistake, it's okay. Think about it this, I think about it this way. How often have you grabbed your phone and said driving directions to the Seattle, what's that big building in the middle, the
Space Needle,
the Space Needle, and you say to your GPS driving directions Space Needle, and then you miss a turn, your GPS reroutes you to somewhere else, and you end up getting there eventually anyway. You may have taken a little bit longer of a ride or a little bit more a more scenic view than you would have taken anyway, but you ended up getting there. Even though you took you took a left when you should have taken a right, or you're going straight, or missed a light, or and if you think about it that way, life really is it's the destination. It's the trip that you take along the way to the destination. It all adds up, and it all becomes what you really need in your life, I think.
Yeah. So I think what you were saying is that life is like a GPS system. You send your end goal where you want to be, and you might take a left turn, go somewhere else. You might take a right turn, and you might get there the fastest way possible sometimes. But the interesting thing is these twists and turns. You might end up seeing a really cool coffee shop, a really cool bakery, a really cool restaurant. You want to stop in there. Next thing you know, you meet somebody there. Like, wow, this is interesting.
We've talked about the self-care Saturdays in the past. And one of the things that Monique and I try to do is every Saturday when we go on date day, we end up trying a new place. We'll either stop at a new tavern or go to a new restaurant or try to find a new town or take a tour of something or hit up a museum. And it's all about just the different things that we do and the fun things that we do that add to our life and make our life a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. We should say something like life is a bunch of detours.
It is.
And these detours are fun. Make a game out of it. Enjoy the fun part of the process. Why chase the destination so badly that you don't enjoy the journey? A big part of stopping and taking a road trip is stopping in all these little places, little towns on the way, and little restaurants, little museums, little vista points that you see on the road or on the side of a mountain or what have you. There's no reason to try to rush to get there. We often drive to California from Seattle. It's about, I want to say 12 to 14-hour drive from Seattle to San Francisco. And we stop in a little town called Ashland. And Ashland, Oregon is a beautiful town. It's where they do the Shakespeare Festival. And it's before Mount Shasta in the California range as you get there. And it's a gorgeous, gorgeous spot right below the mountains. There's a small university there. There's all these shops and restaurants. There's a creek that goes through part of the old town. You can walk down the creek in the mornings. You can enjoy yourself. There's music playing. It's kind of an artist's community as well. And so they've kind of got this little town square thing by this creek, and all these restaurants by the creek at night are lit up with all these lights, and kind of like a little festival European town. And so it's part of the journey for us. We actually make a point to stop there and enjoy instead of trying to rush to go to San Francisco. So I think life is about detours, and it's the clarity that you get along the way that not only makes the journey better, but actually may make your destination better. So you think you're going to San Francisco, you may realize you really want to go to LA. And LA is where Hollywood is, and all the lights and the glamour, and that's where the fun place is. So whatever your destination is, it might be a better destination if you figure out what you get more clarity as you go along the way.
So what I'm hearing is that you should enjoy those route recalculations and not think to yourself, damn it, I missed that turn, but just kind of go with the flow and enjoy.
Exactly. Enjoy the clarity that comes from. Look around while you took a right turn. Hey, is there a coffee shop? Is there a restaurant? Use the analogy of the business piece, right? Hey, so I, back when when the company shut down, I had to go get a job. And I decided in 2008, I remember sitting outside of a Trader Joe's parking lot talking to my mom. She's like, Vipin, don't you think it's time to get a job? You're spending all your personal money and all the money that you had made. I'm like, yep, it's right. And it's before I was 40 years old. And so I ended up getting a job, and I ended up going to Microsoft. And I was pretty lucky to be able to not having worked for somebody else for the last 8 years, and ended up at Microsoft. So I have a lot of love and appreciation for that company. And what was really interesting is I thought I wanted to go learn software, how it's built at Microsoft, because they're such a great company. But because they were so big, that's not the way you build software. So I learned how not to build software at Microsoft. Then I went to another company. That's where they taught me how to build software in an agile and a modern way.
Right.
It's really funny how Microsoft was still stuck in back when I was there. It was great for my resume to be there, but actually building software, that wasn't the place to learn. Then I went somewhere else. Then I learned about product management. Then I learned about this. Then I learned about e-commerce. I learned about all these little tools. And of all the things, you pick up a little experiences along the way. And little experiences along the way, I'm in the healthcare space. I'm in the healthcare space for the last almost 4 years. And as a part of that, I know healthcare now. I kind of wanted to be in healthcare because it's nascent technology. It's kind of old world technology. And I wanted to be kind of an advanced thinker, advanced builder coming from bigger companies. Well, I'm there, and now I understand healthcare systems. And now this woman that I met through a friend wants to start a healthcare company. Well, guess what? I spent 3.5 years learning about healthcare. So one thing leads to another. You don't realize along the journey what tools you're going to pick up. And now you get clarity at the end. You're like, oh my God, this is interesting. I totally know what she's talking about. Mm-hmm. I totally know how to solve the healthcare problems. So not all the problems, obviously, but just one little problem.
Well, if you could do that, we wouldn't be talking here today, Vipin.
We still would be. We just have a lot more people in the audience.
That is absolutely true. Remember, the world responds to energy and movement, and that's what you're doing right now. Is you're creating energy and you're doing the movements in order to make this stuff work for yourself.
Yeah, and you get clarity from being out there, talking to people. I firmly believe God works through, and the universe works through people. They give you insights. They're like, that's interesting. What about this? This is interesting. You get more clarity by talking to people, by going out there, trying things. You learn not only from your mistakes, but you learn from getting other people's experiences, getting other people's thoughts. And so that's really is the key, in my opinion, is get out there, learn, get more clarity, take action. Action could mean just talking to someone. It doesn't mean you got to run 100 miles an hour, develop the business plan, and go sell. Take it easy a little bit. Learn. What do you need to know? Go get some mentors. Go get some friends in the business. Ask a friend for help. Ask them what's going on in their life, saying this is what you're working on. Is there something they can help with? If not, they might direct you somewhere else. Go on an online resource. Go figure this out. I clicked on an ad this morning I was up early. I was up at 5. I had a business call actually at 6:30 Sunday morning today. Guy from Australia I was talking to. Email marketing thing that I'm working on. And right before that, I saw an ad for something. This guy's talking about making your podcast one of the top 100 podcasts globally. Now, he's charging a lot of money, but if he could do that, how much would it be worth for Bob and Vipin show to be one of the top 100 podcasts? So I'm going to listen to him. He may not have all the answers, but he may have a couple of tidbits here and there. And talking to him, learning from him, it might open up a whole bunch of doors for this podcast to fly. So you manifest by getting clarity, by taking action, by being open to the universe, and most importantly, by staying calm, centered, loving.
Any final thoughts there, Vipin?
Yeah, if you want to learn more what's going on, you can go to chakramantras.com, manifest360.com is what we talk about here. Sorry, manifest360.app is really the app that we talk about creating our purpose, getting clarity, creating a prosperity plan. So go to manifest360.app, check out the features that we've got there. It's all free, and just go ahead and use it and share with other people.
And don't be afraid of that detour every once in a while. And that wraps up this episode of Manifest 360. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't just think about it, apply it. Alignment isn't a vibe, it's a practice. Belief, emotion, strategy, and action, all moving in the same direction, that's where momentum lives. Be sure to follow, share with someone building something meaningful, and join us next week as we continue helping you manifest wealth and purpose. Manifest 360 is a podcastforhire.com production.